One thing I want to talk about here, and Alfred, you brought it up earlier, just thinking about ERP buying as being a long-term decision, which it is. And it's not just about solving the problems that they're facing today. It's about, setting up your business for the future. So I want to go into what happens when a company might not be thinking long-term. They're thinking about, how do I solve the problem in front of me right now? Alfred, what's a risk of picking a system that only solves today's problems?
Well, there's a whole bunch of risks, you talk about costs that will incur. Usually the adverse effects of not having a long-term approach is you implement a system for the short term, and then, for example, when you are growing, I've seen this happen all the time with organizations who will prioritize either money or speed upfront, only to later realize that when they have a new company, for example, or a new warehouse, or they need to pivot a business model, then the cost of implementing that is significantly higher than if they try to future proof that implementation or configuration right up front. And this is really what you sort of hard code today's constraints, and then you have to pay something like a change tax later. So the cost of trying to scale the business after that initial implementation becomes so much more difficult than if you had tried to sort of build a more scalable approach right from the start. And one of the examples is really sort of taking a multi-entity approach. This is something that I see with my customers all the time. Is they are growing quite fast. They want to grow through opening up new entities and market expansion, and they really ought to ensure the system scales for that. We've implemented things like global template configurations for organizations that have multiple entities, even sometimes across multiple countries as well. And that's all the work that needs to be done upfront. Otherwise, you run into a lot of issues related to just spending so much more money trying to make it scalable after the fact.
The process of adding international environments, if you're not really thinking about that up front and thinking, oh, we'll just do that later, those are the kinds of things that you really need to just really get all of that out front for the entire requirement process, so that you're not surprised later to find out, oh, that doesn't work the way they were thinking. So I think that's really one of the many areas of making sure that you've got all of your priorities and what's to come long term figured out early on.